Hello, I am LRFLEW, and I will be running Empathy Path of Whispers. Alright, starting the run. So, Empathy Path of Whispers is an indie game from 2017 that released to rather mixed reception. I'd describe the game as sort of a mix between a walking simulator, sort of like Dear Esther or Gone Home, and a adventure game, sort of like a point-and-click adventure game. And the game sort of does that by having two separate progressions. So there's a walking simulator style progression where you listen to dialogue to progress through the story, and there's an adventure game style progression where you solve item puzzles to progress. And the game interconnects these two progressions together. So progressing through the story will give you items you need for puzzles, and solving item puzzles will get you to areas that you need to continue the story.
I know where we have to go. I remember the room.
Completing the story progression is generally pretty slow because you have to wait for the dialogue to finish to be able to continue. So a lot of the sequence breaking of this game will be trying to progress through the adventure game's puzzles without actually completing the story. And so you'll see that as we progress. So first, I just need to grab the scanner and solve this little wave puzzle. This is the only one in the run, and that's because in an update, the developer added an option to disable the rest of those wave puzzles in the game. So disabling it saves a little bit of time, so I've done that. Side note, you can see out here that there's nothing outside this window. That might become relevant. Also, everything is going wrong. So here the game's about to fade out, and during the fade out, I'm going to be holding backwards. And that will allow me to actually move during this fade out slightly. If I do it right, I can just get a little bit further into this room during that fade out. And I can do the same here. And those are the only two fade outs where you can do that in the game. I don't know why it's those two specifically, but it is. And then here we get to the first tutorial for how you progress through the walking simulator part of the game. So over here we have a memento. So you'll see when I have the radar, it points to these mementos, helps indicate where they are. And then when I click on one of the mementos, once the dialogue is done, it plays a little bit of dialogue and progresses through. These mementos spawn in sets, so there's one more to the set. And when you grab all the mementos in the set, it plays a memory. That memory creates some sort of effect on the world, such as giving you an item, or just, giving you more access to an area. While I'm here, if I happen to fall off a ledge or something, I end up respawning at the last grounded position I'm at. Now that distance is pretty short, so a lot of the movement has to work around that distance. So here we are in the first memory. In this one, I'm building a bridge. In this one, I can actually swing the hammer a little bit early on the second swing. I missed there, but not on the first one. If I do swing too early, there's a bit of a cooldown that ends up hurting me, so I have to be really careful about when I swing here. Oops, I missed it there.
Good enough.
And so that was the first memory, and the effect is that it built this bridge for me to cross. The other effect that memories have is that it spawns the next set of mementos. So if I pull out the radar, you can see the arrows pointing to the next area. So one of the big challenges, then, is that if you need the effect of one memory, if you need the effect of one memory, you need to do all of the memories before it, because otherwise you don't get the mementos to actually start that memory. So even with that limitation, I am able to skip pretty much every memory that I can. However, because of that progression, a lot of the memories that still need to be done are right at the beginning of the game.
For the record, I did say this was the city of innovation and not the city of functioning utility.
So I'm going to be grabbing this set of mementos here in a bit of a strange order, and that's simply because it's helpful to maximize the amount of time I'm spending walking while dialogue is playing. Because if I'm just waiting around for dialogue to finish, when I could be doing something more productive, then that's wasted time. Anyways, I didn't explain. So this area is Atlas Park. So this is where the first level in the game takes place. So right over here, I'm going to grab another memento, and then I'm going to take a bit of a sidetrack and do something else before I finish the set of mementos. So the end of this area, the last part they have to do here, is you turn on a device called an emitter, and that opens up the exit to the area. To turn on that device, we need 4 items. 2 of them are up here, but one of the items is locked away in the safe, and I'm not supposed to know the combo. But I do know the combo, so I can grab the item now. So the last memory in this area actually gives you the combination for that safe. However, the game doesn't check to see whether you should know the combination for the safe, so you can get that item without having to need the memory. So we do skip the last memory in this area. This game has 4 major areas. So after the intro, we have Act 1 here in Atlas Park. There's Act 2 in the train station, Act 3 in Eagleview Plateau, and Act 4 in the Eagleview Cliffside. And then there's Act 5, there's kind of, they call it Act 5, but it's basically just the ending of the game. And Acts 1 through 4 all have 3 memories each. Because of how quickly I'm going to be moving through some of these acts, I'm going to explain some of them a little bit real quick. So Act 3, the way Act 3 ends is that the last memory of Act 3 gives you access to a jerry can of gasoline. Use the gasoline to turn on an elevator, which you ride up to get access to a puzzle, and then when you solve that puzzle, it opens the exit to Act 3. Now there is a way to skip going through the elevator in Act 3. However, there's actually a slightly faster way of skipping Act 3, which I'll show you when we get to that part of the game. So here we have the last memento for this set, which is the glasses in the sandpit. As you may notice, there is dialogue currently playing, and that's because when you walk through certain zones, you can trigger dialogue, which you still have to wait on. So here I'm just messing around with the merry-go-round while I wait for the memory to start. And so, now we're in the first memory of Act 1, which is pretty simple. I just need to wait on the dialogue to finish, and then once the dialogue is done, I just click.
It's still active, you know that. Salma, no!
Alright, and so right after that memory, I go into here, and I grab this memento. There's a little bit of dialogue that is queued up to play just a little bit of time after that memory ends. And so if I can start that, if I can grab that memento first, that dialogue starts playing, the other dialogue gets queued up behind it, and it saves just a few seconds. I still have to wait on both dialogue anyways, but there's slightly less waiting if I can grab that memento before the other dialogue starts.
Between breaths, simply forget that she didn't.
So after Act 3, in Eagleview Plateau, comes Act 4, which takes place in the cliffside. So in the cliffside, there's like buildings that are built into the side of the cliff, as well as a cave system that's inside the cave, inside those cliffs. So the first memory in Act 4, what that does is it gives you access to those caves. There's an entrance that's blocked off, and in the memory you open that up.
What's going on?
There are 2 other entrances into the cave.
What about her?
Unfortunately, they're not in places that you're intended to be able to access from the start of Act 4. But there are 2 other entrances to keep in mind. The ending of Act 4, so the last memory, the third memory in Act 4, is a little bit different. In that one, you end up kind of back on top, and there's a bunch of searchlights that are trying to spot you, and you're supposed to try to avoid all of the searchlights, and then pull a lever which lowers a drawbridge which you'll need to cross to get out of Act 4.
can't see what I can do.
Now, it's worth noting
It's been sleeping
what
out.
happens with those searchlights, because this game doesn't really have fail states, right? You can't jump off, right? If you try to fall, it just puts you back. So what happens if you do fail to avoid those searchlights? Well, the memory just ends anyways. So there's a separate ending. There's sort of like a good ending, and you get an achievement for being able to avoid all the searchlights. But if you do get caught by the searchlights, that's also considered a valid ending to that memory. So in a sense, there are two ways then to end Act 4. One is to lower the drawbridge normally, and the other
I'm just sorry.
is to get caught by the searchlight.
It was one of
So there I just used the item that I got from the first memory here, which was the military card that was on the table that you saw me pick up. And that gives me access to up here, which there's a few more mementos hiding up here,
drugs and
as well as an item I will need later, which is the transistor.
uppers, downers, sheaves and switchblades. We've been confiscating this.
So from here I just have one more memento, just up here,
More of it keeps finding
and then
its
after
way.
this one, we'll have the last memory I will be completing for a little while.
People are disappearing. Too many to ignore.
So as I mentioned, the last memory in this area gives you the code for the safe that I already opened, so I don't need to complete the last memory in this area.
Pavel, the girl. Everything's coming apart and
So the narrative right now is that there's a detective trying to figure out what's going on, because, you know,
I
person's
feel
dead.
I'm on the verge of understanding, but
And so here, I just need to put the items in the place, which is the detective trying to put together the clues.
so much death. Darwazar was shot by a
And then once I get the last item over here,
nothing to do with
I get
but the gun
the crowbar.
the exact
So the crowbar is an important item because it gives me access to the sewers, which is the last major location in this area I need to actually get access to be able to leave Atlas Park.
could trade for them.
It's a powerful compulsion.
Ah, so it's a little bit faster to go down this way, if I don't keep slipping
Even more
off.
so than the Who. Why would someone want to hurt us? Why?
Not really supposed to be able to just walk down the side here, but I found some good geometry to do that. It's a little bit faster. It's a lot, but you have to be careful because, you know, you're getting pretty close to that respawn limit. So from here, I can just use the crowbar,
Locked steel hat.
open this,
I don't know about
and
you,
take the ladder
but when
down.
I see a locked steel anything, I get awfully
And now we're in the sewers.
Looks like we'll have
So if you look around in the sewers up ahead, you will see up on the right there's this metal door, but I can't open the door right now. All of the doors are locked. To be able to unlock them, I need to head up here to the left and do the worst part of the run, which is these jets over here, and I need to avoid them.
Who built this place?
So these are basically on a sort of cycle. Ah! I didn't stop in time for the last one. Uh-oh. Got some bad geometry there. Yeah, so this can definitely be one of the worst parts of the run. Alright, so I just get over here, place the transistor, and then I get to do it again, but in reverse. And no, I can't just intentionally jump off to get back on the other side. It remembers which side you approach it from. Luckily, I had a little bit less issues getting across the other way. So once I've put that in place, I can get the fourth and final item I need to be able to leave the area,
Ever seen doors like these in sewers? Looks more like
which
a
is just
prison
up here.
or a bunker to me. In fact, I'm not sure these are
I just
sewers
need to
at all.
grab the core.
They don't smell right.
So now I have 4 items, the core, effigy, coil, and the schematics.
These tunnels smell like
So I use those first 3 items to fix up the emitter, which is down here, and then use the schematics to turn it on. The entrance to that area is just over here. Gotta open the door. And take the elevator down. So once I use the schematics, a 9-second timer starts, and at the end of those 9 seconds, the cutscene plays. But I can use those 9 seconds, and if I'm quick enough, I can save a little bit of time. Because if I can get back into the elevator and turn the elevator on, I think I just barely got it there. If I turn on the elevator right before the cutscene, the elevator will continue to rise during the cutscene. It just cuts down a little bit of time spent waiting during that cutscene.
I feel different. Do you feel it too? Like 100,000 voices at the back of your head?
Right, so now since I've turned on the emitter device, I can now walk back over to where I'd entered the sewers and take the ladder all the way down. And that is Act 1. From here, the sequence breaks really start. So as you can see, there's this little train car up here, and I'm supposed to take that all the way to the train station where Act 2 takes place. But as it turns out, it's actually slightly faster to just run. So I'm just going to do that. So I haven't explained how Act 2 works just yet. So in the last memory of Act 2 has you unlock the shed that you can see over here just a little to the left. And inside that shed is a lever that turns on a power source. So there are 3 levers for 3 power sources in this area, 2 of which I can access at any time, 1 of which I need to the last memory to get access to. What those 3 power sources turn on are little source blocks in this little pipe puzzle. If you ever played like Waterworks, you kind of get the idea. And so there's like 3 power sources and there's 3 goals. And so if you connect the 3 power sources to the 3 goals, it turns on an emitter device and it opens up the exit to the area. Now, actually getting that 3rd power source in the shed would require completing all 3 memories here, but also the memory that we skipped back in Act 1. So I'm going to need a slightly different solution to be able to complete this. So first things first, I need to press the button over here so I don't soft lock, but then I can save a little bit of time by not going the intended route here and instead just carefully jumping down onto that. That is very specific to be able to not trigger the falling system. So now I've got the 2nd lever here, and so what I do is that I almost solve 2 of these, and then very quickly do that, and the device turns on. So what happened there is that the game doesn't actually check if all 3 goals are powered. Instead, it keeps a running count of how many are powered. And the problem with that is that the game registers when a connection is made and a connection is broken, but it takes slightly longer to register a connection being made. And there is a reason for it. It prevents another type of error. But if I'm able to make those 2 moves within 1/5 of a second, it registers the disconnection before the connection, which means that counter tries to go negative, which it knows isn't right. It knows it shouldn't be negative, so it has some error checking for that, but it doesn't handle the error correctly, which means it ends up counting a connection that doesn't exist. From there, I just make 2 more connections, so it counts 3 connections and considers the puzzle solved.
Look at this place.
So now that the game thinks the puzzle is solved, it spawns the train over here, and I just click on the door, and it will take me through the loading zone into the next area. This actually is the only loading transition, the only map transition in the game. Interestingly, I'd walked through a bunch of dialogue triggers, so the narrator is talking about all sorts of things right now, and isn't actually, it's about to be cut off by the transition. And now we get to Eagle View, which is interestingly quite a bit brighter than where we were before. So there's actually an interesting contrast there. So as I mentioned, up ahead is the Eagle View Plateau, which is where Act 3 takes place. You can see a little bit of kind of the buildings built into the cliffs where Act 4 takes place. For Act 3, as I mentioned, the intended solution is you take that elevator up, you can see it just a little to the left, and you solve a puzzle up there to open the exit. Now, it is possible to just walk up the cliffs, It's really funny to watch. But unfortunately, it isn't the fastest solution. So there actually is a slightly faster one. So down here, towards the left, is a broken bridge. The game does not expect you to be able to jump across that bridge. In fact, the game gives you an achievement for failing to jump across the bridge. And you can't really jump across the bridge. You actually lose a lot of speed, and so you won't make the distance. But we can just barely run across if we get a little bit of extra height. Almost. If you get this slightly wrong, you have to try it again. Yeah. This is a fairly precise trick. Almost. I was having a little bit of trouble with this in practice as well. Almost. This trick is fast enough that even if you mess it up a few times, it's faster than doing the other strategy. Oh, I thought I had it that time. Oh.
Well, that was kind of pointless.
There's a little bit of weird collision for this trick. You have to kind of like hit the very lip there. I think I wasn't quite moving fast enough. I really thought that one was good. Not sure why I'm having so much trouble with this right now. That was just bad. There we go. So doing that skips all of Act 3, and we end up in this area for Act 4. Now to get into the caves, the main entrance is blocked off, but there is another entrance I can get to. I could do that by getting up here, and then I could just kind of clip through the roof here, and that will give me access to this area, which does have an entrance I can use. So from here, I just need to go through a route in the caves that I've memorized. And I just need to get up to the highest part of the cave system over here. And once I get to the top, I just need to jump. And then wait for the right cycle. There it is. So what happened there is I just got caught by the searchlights from the ending of Act 4. So they happen to clip just barely underground far enough that I'm able to jump up into it. And so triggering that opens up that door, lowers the drawbridge, and lets me head over to the ending. It also spawns in the last set of mementos for the ending, which is very helpful since I'm not able to skip the last memory of the game. Interestingly, you may also notice that there is a pointer stuck in the middle of the radar that isn't supposed to be there. So what happened there is that triggering the Act 4 skip set my story progression to the last memory of the game, but it didn't, and it despawned all of the mementos all the way that it originally spawned in Act 3, but the radar device doesn't know they're despawned, so it still has a bunch of arrows trying to point to mementos that no longer exist in the world. Now, they're currently stuck in the center of the screen because that's their default position. If I had pulled out the radar, this device, at any point during, before I triggered the Act 4 skip, then they would be stuck in whatever the last direction they were pointing were. But since I didn't pull it out, they're just stuck in the center.
Giant rings are naturally occurring. We're getting close again.
So that's the first memento of this set, so just, again, one last set.
They are not crazy, they are victims. And yes, there's a chance. It's why we had to run in the first place.
And so it is a very good coincidence that the Act 4 skip actually does reset the story progress to the end here, because otherwise we would be stuck.
last breath before the plunge.
What do you think those giant rings are?
Dr. Gerasimov says they are focus amplifiers. I asked him to explain.
So all of the mementos in the game have the same system, where you can't have any dialogue playing before you pick it up. That is, well, technically, there is an exception. There is actually one memento in this game. There's one memento in this game that you can pick up before, and it will cue the dialogue. And that memento is this one right here. So now I have one dialogue playing and another one queued up behind it. So that gives me just a little bit of time to mess around while both dialogues play. So I might as well show you an out of bounds area here. So you can just kind of walk through the rock. So yeah, now I'm just behind the rock area. It's pretty easy to kind of get stuck back here. So it's a good thing that the memory will teleport me back out. So there we go. From here, I just complete the puzzle for the memory and wait on the dialogue to finish. So I think it's worth taking a moment here to talk a little bit about what I think this run will look like in the future, because, I mean, a lot of these sequence breaks have been discovered over time. The Act 4 skip was the first discovery that I made, and that was done completely by accident. From there, I discovered the way to get into the cave system, and then the first Act 3 skip. And then a few years later, I came back to this game, discovered the new way of skipping Act 3, as well as finally the way to skip Act 2. So, what might be next? Well, right now I'm really close to having a solution to skip grabbing the crowbar, which would mean skipping the second memory in Act 1. I kind of have a lot of the pieces largely worked out, but I just haven't gotten everything to fit together. Hopefully that will be worked out, and that would save a couple of minutes off this run, which would be really awesome.
A hope, a fault, an unfound
Outside of that, there's like other ones that could be nice, you know, skipping some of the other memories in the game, like the first memory and the last memory, as well as somehow getting out of Atlas Park without activating the emitter device, which would save a huge chunk of time. However, I don't really have a solution for those problems at this point. But hey, maybe they will be discovered in the future. So from here, I'm just in the facility and I just need to solve a number of item puzzles. This is about as complex as the item puzzles get in this game, because there's a lot of kind of multi-step ones where you have to use an item multiple times in a row. But luckily, everything is pretty well organized by floor, so I can just take it from the bottom floor up.
3 kinds of granola, fresh fruit, protein shakes, pancake Tuesdays, wine and sirloin to celebrate major breakthroughs. Imagine if Eagleview knew about this well-stocked pantry.
So just grabbing a lot of items here. And I just need to solve this puzzle, which is actually pretty simple once you've memorized the solution. Then I can just go up to the last floor here.
All parts of the largest, most audacious machine ever built. It started out with mice and rabbits, then pigs, then monkeys. They tested drugs, beta blockers,
but yeah,
shock therapy applied.
So right now I am the only person running this game, and I'm pretty much only running the any % category. So there are other categories that I've set up. So if you want an easy world record, I mean, this game has a couple just ready for you. From here, I just have the last few items I need. Place those. And then this, you might recognize this from the start of the game, but now there are things over there. Just interesting to note.
I don't know what's going to happen to us.
So at this point, I just need to wait on dialogue, so there's not much I can do to speed this up. But time will end about 9 seconds after I press the button, which is when the ending cutscene for the game starts.
Right? Right. I'll see you on the flip side.
Right, and there we go.
Here we are.
So that was Empathy Path of Whispers. I hope you all enjoyed that. If you're interested in this game, feel free to reach out to me on various places. I You know, there's the speedrun.com forum for this game. I haven't created a Discord specifically for this game, but you can see me in the Discord for the Obscure Speedruns Club if you want to ask about this game. If there's enough interest, I can definitely start a dedicated Discord for this. I'd love to get more people to run this game. I think it's really interesting. There's a lot of interesting kind of techniques with it. And yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy the rest of the Obscurathon. So, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Paris was a place of mingled water and idolized meiosis. A doorless room could be no safer. We have done what we can. What's left is them, and they are wind and dreams. Behold the human, who is flawed and perfect. Hey, kiddo. Are you awake?